Hello, welcome back to the Marvelous Dino Drax, where the audio quality in this video is kind of iffy to say the least. The reason I say that is because I have technically uploaded this video before. I kind of used the Eminem Venom song from like the first movie, and that caused the YouTube algorithm to copyright me and make it so that no one saw my video. Kind of stunk, but I decided to basically redo the intro so more people can have the chance to, see this video on their like For You page or whatever. Basically, that explains the audio change and my difference in outfit, because I recorded the original bit a long time ago and time has passed. So basically, this entire thing is a makeshift intro to change what I said last time, because it was kind of an elaborate build up to the Venom song, and it was funny, at least I think so. And I can't play it because the audio makes it better and I can't play the audio. That also means I need to find a way to segue into our new video, which is basically to recap for the next upcoming Sony Marvel movie. And I kind of got nothing, considering I really like that original intro, so insert music to cut me off that I'm going to do as a bit for every single video. Wow, you're cutting me off. This is getting old fast. Today, I will recap for the Sony Marvel movie Venom: The Last Dance, which Venom has only appeared in 2 standalone movies and 2 mentions in other movies. Yep, absolutely no other movie has mentioned Venom at all. Let's get started. This version of Venom is the second time we have had a Venom on the big screen. The first time was in Spider-Man 3 and was totally not shoehorned in by the studio against Sam Raimi's wishes, because that would be awful. We start the 2018 movie Venom with the Life Foundation's rocket coming back to Earth in a crash landing. They say any landing you can walk away from is a good landing. This was very much not that. The space expedition found a comet in space that had millions of life forms on it, and the Foundation's CEO, Carlton Drake, had them bring back some to be studied. After a cleanup crew reached the crash site, they found that most of the specimens were intact, but one was missing. They also found that one of the astronauts, whose name was Jameson, had survived. They tried to bring Jameson to a hospital, but apparently Jameson had the missing symbiote in him and attacked the nurse helping him. Now the nurse has the symbiote and is looking for the Life Foundation. We now head to San Francisco, where Eddie Brock is a reporter with his own show and is engaged to Anne. His boss gives him an interview opportunity with Carlton Drake, and Eddie decides to ignore the warnings from his boss and his fiancée and tries to push Drake into revealing more info about his questionable ethics that his company uses. This one decision gets Eddie fired and dumped by Anne, and it leaves his life to spiral and he ends up miserable. We then go to 6 months later, where we see Drake has his symbiotes and is trying to let them bond with rabbits. When that becomes successful, he decides to begin human trials with the symbiotes, but this causes concern with one of his scientists, Dr. Skirth. We then see Eddie is living his terrible life with a neighbor who is too loud and no job opportunities. But at least he has some friends, one being Maria and one being Mrs. Chen. Meanwhile, Drake is using homeless subjects for his tests with the symbiotes. Let's just say it didn't end well. This is enough to convince Dr. Skirth that she needs to find Eddie Brock and ask for his help. He says no, since Drake already ruined his life and he is not looking to give him another chance. Eddie does decide to check on Anne and sees that she has a boyfriend named Dan, who is a surgeon. In a change of heart, Eddie decides to help Dr. Skirth, and he goes with her to investigate the lab with the symbiotes. He finds that his friend Maria is one of the subjects, and after he lets her out, she attacks him and gives him the symbiote. After a chase scene where Eddie was confused on how he was doing things, Eddie loses control and knocks himself out. Drake finds out that one of his symbiotes is missing, and he sends his head guard Treese to find it. Through all this, the missing symbiote has had quite the journey of eating seafood and being a Minecraft YouTuber, and has found its way to San Francisco. Eddie wakes up and causes a scene at a seafood restaurant where Dan and Anne are. Dan gets worried and gives Eddie an MRI, which hurt him, and sends him home. Finally, Dr. Skirth was found out, and she reveals to Drake that she had Eddie Brock help her out. Drake understands and lets her go. Of course I'm joking, he kills her. Drake sends Treese to retrieve the symbiote, but the symbiote protects itself and Eddie by taking out everyone by hand and in a car chase sequence. At one point, Eddie gets knocked down and the symbiote takes over and bites someone's head off. They escape and the symbiote reveals itself as Venom, and Eddie has them go to his boss's office to give him photos to take down Drake and the Life Foundation. During this, Dan sends Anne to find Eddie since his MRI results aren't looking so good. Eddie gets the photos taken to his boss's desk, and when he leaves, a SWAT team is there, and he and Venom take them out. Anne finds Eddie and is a little freaked out when she sees Venom and gets him to dance. Drake finds a little girl and tries to help her, but she gives him the missing symbiote. Dan and Anne try to tell Eddie that the symbiote is killing his organs and they get it out of him using the high-frequency sound from the MRI machine, which hurts the symbiotes. Eddie leaves and gets captured by the Life Foundation, and Anne finds herself attached to Venom. Drake tries to ask Eddie where Venom is and reveals that he has a symbiote of his own. When that doesn't work, he sends Treese to kill Eddie, and Drake talks to his symbiote and they work out that they need to use a rocket to find other symbiotes to take over the world. Treese and other soldiers try to take out Eddie, but Anne and Venom kill them all and she gives Eddie Venom back by kissing him. Drake and his symbiote, named Riot, start the rocket launch and starts to fight Venom and Eddie. After a long battle, which included Eddie dying for a brief moment there, Venom kills Riot by blowing up the rocket with Riot inside. Venom shields Eddie from the blast by sacrificing himself since fire also hurts the symbiotes. After a while, Anne and Eddie have made some amends and Eddie has decided to take up the written word for a job for the Daily Bugle and has a good interview coming up. Anne is sorry that Venom is dead, but I guess she didn't get the memo that she's now in a franchise. Venom helps Eddie save Mrs. Chen, and during the end credits scene, he goes to meet a serial killer named Cletus Cassidy, which brings us to the next movie, Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Cletus Cassidy grew up in St. Estes School for Unwanted Children and had a soulmate named Frances Barrison, who was sent to the Ravencroft Institute for her shrieking powers being too strong. Eddie was chosen by Cletus himself to interview him in the present day, and Detective Mulligan wants Eddie to not screw this up. Yeah, he kinda screws it up and doesn't get a lot of info. But Venom does help Eddie use some details in Cletus' room to find some missing bodies that allows Cletus to get the death penalty. This breakthrough gives Eddie's career a jumpstart and he is popular again. Meanwhile, Venom and Eddie are annoying each other because Venom wants to be a hero, but Eddie is quite content with his life. But after the surprise that Anne is engaged to Dan, Venom cuts back and tries to console Eddie's heart. Cletus invites Eddie to witness his execution, and after a little skirmish which causes Cletus to bite Eddie's hand, Eddie has enough with Venom. Eddie and Venom have a fight, and Venom leaves Eddie to go off and do his own thing. Sadly, Cletus' execution goes wrong because Cletus managed to get his own symbiote named Carnage and breaks out of prison. Eddie sees on the news that Cletus escaped and is looking for clues on where he would go. Eddie finds St. Estes and sees that Cletus liked Frances, and Detective Mulligan reveals that he shot her in the eye, and she caused him to have hearing problems in his ear. Cletus finds Frances in Ravencroft and breaks her out, but Carnage also has some friction with Frances, who we will now call Shriek. After this, Mulligan calls Eddie to the police station and questions him, but Eddie calls for Anne to help him find Venom to stop Cletus. During all this, Venom went to a party and bonded with Mrs. Chen. Anne finds Venom and he helps her break Eddie free, and Eddie sends Anne and Dan to try and get out of the city since it isn't safe. Turns out he was right because Shriek captures Anne and Cletus captures Detective Mulligan. They use Anne as bait for Eddie and he goes to Grace Cathedral to stop Carnage and Shriek at their wedding. Venom and Carnage fight and Shriek attacks Mulligan and pokes his eye out and gets him impaled. Carnage is too strong for Venom and he grabs Anne and tries to kill her. But Venom notices that Carnage and Cletus aren't symbiotic, so they save Anne from being like Gwen Stacy and kill Carnage and kill Cletus. We end with Venom and Eddie going off to be fugitives from the law and be lethal protectors, and they leave Dan and Anne behind. Does suck about Detective Mulligan though. At least he is at peace and nope, he's alive. See you in the third movie. Now during the end credits, we see that Venom and Eddie are transported to the main MCU universe due to the events of Spider-Man No Way Home. Their role in that movie boiled down to learning the history of the universe and leaving behind a little present. Maybe. We'll see if that bit of symbiote is in the MCU or their universe. Which, by the way, it was mentioned in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse that this universe is likely called Earth 688. Now, that is all the movies that mention Venom. Yep. Nothing else takes place in this universe.
Well, we haven't had anything this good since that thing in San Francisco.
That could be any event in San Francisco, even though Venom takes place there. I still don't think this is... I don't have to recap that.
I am Venom.
Fuck. Just in case, even though I'm entirely sure we won't need to know, I'll recap Morbius in the very unlikely event that it's mentioned. This will be quick, I don't want to dwell on this for long. Morbius has a DNA defect that leaves him and his friend Milo living on the edge of death. Morbius decides to combine bat and human DNA to help cure him, and decides to go to international waters to test this cure with help from his fellow doctor, Martine. The cure causes him to become a vampire, and he kills the crew and leaves Martine unscathed. FBI agents investigate the situation and keep an eye on Morbius. Morbius realizes that he needs artificial blood to keep his bloodlust in check and warns Milo that the cure is a curse. Milo ignores this and kills a nurse friend of Morbius. The FBI agents think it was Morbius who killed the nurse and put him in prison. Milo helps Morbius break out and they fight for a bit, and Milo kills more guys and Morbius leaves. Morbius finds Martine and she helps him find an antibody that will kill Milo and Morbius before they will hurt anyone else. Milo finds Martine and hurts her in order to grab Morbius' attention. Morbius and Martine kiss and she bites his lip. Morbius drinks some of her blood to get stronger, and he and Milo fight, and it ends with Morbius using the antibody on Milo to kill him, and he flies away into the night sky. And Martine might be alive too. Who knows? Oh yeah, and the events of Spider-Man No Way Home allowed the Vulture to get to that universe, and he meets up with Morbius to consider teaming up with other guys to do some good. And that is all you might need to know for Venom: The Last Dance. Honestly, I hope so. I mean, sure, there are some things that I might have missed, like the fact that the actor who played the Lizard in The Amazing Spider-Man might be reprising that role. In which case, all you really need to know about that is that he is a scientist with one arm who wanted to turn New York City into lizards and was stopped by Peter 3. But Kirk Connors also saved him and grew a heart. That was kind of ignored in Spider-Man No Way Home. Nonetheless, thank you for watching, and let me know how I did this time. Especially the audio. I'm very serious about that. Anyway, have a marvelous day.